It's Mohim for Boxing Domination, and today I'm joined by two very special guests, Rolando Moreno and Alexis Angulo, the former super middleweight world title challenger, joining me from Tallahassee, Florida. Guys, how's life treating you?
Great, man. Honestly, we're honored to be here. ¿Cómo te trata la vida?
Excelente, mejor que nunca.
Right. He said better than ever. Better than ever. Better
Guys,
than ever.
let's just say the way it is. March the 1st in Miami, Florida, at the Tropical Center. The fight goes down. The comeback of the superstar himself.
Yes.
How's the training camp been for this fight?
¿Cómo ha ido tu entrenamiento hasta este punto? Porque él dice que ha sido tiempo que no te fajas como hasta este momento.
Creo que este entrenamiento ha estado mejor que otros y creo que, y estoy seguro que este entrenamiento está más completo que los que he tenido anteriormente. Entonces, por lo tanto, me siento mucho mejor que antes.
So you know what? After the long layoff, he says this is actually one of his better training camps that he feels, re-energized. He feels this is one of the best training camps he's ever had, and he's very excited.
Obviously, for a kid to be born in Colombia and now fighting in the big stages in America, your last fight was against Edgar Berlanga. Of course, you've shared the ring with Gilberto Ramirez as well, who now is fighting at cruiserweight. I do want to ask you, obviously, from super middleweight to now light heavyweight, is that the plan going forward to fight at 175?
Okay, so obviamente te fajaste con Gilberto Ramirez, te fajaste con Edgar Berlanga. Ahora tú estás esperando subir y quedarte al peso de 175. ¿O ese es el plan en el futuro?
El plan, pues, es pelear en el peso que sea, ya sea en la 175 o la 178 libras. Entonces, donde se presente la oportunidad, lo vamos a hacer.
So he says, listen, he's willing to fight wherever. Okay, like the ranges, it does not matter. He's a very dangerous fighter. If you notice on his record, he has, and this sounds weird, 3 very distinguished losses. Okay, like, you follow me? It's like he's game for anything, and he's willing, to fluctuate in weight or not. He's very focused, and we're gonna win a world title.
I definitely believe so too. And your knockout power, one thing I have to say is 23 wins out of 27, 23 knockouts out of 27 wins. Where does the knockout power come from?
So tú tienes un porcentaje de knockouts, okay? ¿A qué tú atrevitas ese poder de knockout que tú tienes?
No, ese crédito se lo doy primeramente de todos ellos y pues también a la forma en que como he criado, ¿no? Ya que vengo del campo y pues soy enseñado al trabajo duro.
Right, so number one, he wants to thank God for his knockout power, but he also wants to attribute, he grew up in a farm, okay, so he has that farm strength, okay, and everything was hard work and just hard labor, so he attributes that to his knockout power to that.
And from your very first fight in 2010, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was in the Dominican Republic, to now, literally 14 years later, as a professional, I want to ask you something I know probably a lot of people have asked you before, but what made you want to start boxing?
De que tú empezaste a boxear profesionalmente, ¿qué te inspiró a empezar el boxeo?
Bueno, principalmente, no sé, como la rivalidad, ¿no? El saber que sí podía hacerlo y que pues que si quería ciertas cosas, pues tenía que esforzarme un poco más y pues que esta era la oportunidad, esta era la forma como quería hacerlo, como puedo hacerlo.
So, well, number one, he liked the competition. Okay, he really reveled in the competition. But also it came down to having a limited resources and wanting an opportunity, and given that he did have the traits early on that he did recognize that he was a good fighter. you know, it gave him an opportunity to really progress in his life.
And your only three losses have come under the hands of David Benavidez, Gilberto Ramirez, and of course Edgar Berlanga. Berlanga fights literally in about a few hours' time.
Right.
Now, I want to ask you, obviously, after you've made your comeback fight, is the rematch fights still on your radar?
Ok, so, después que tú ganas este título, ok, si tú tenías que escoger una pelea, ok, de las tres que perdiste, ¿con quién fuera?
De las tres que perdí, escogería entre Berlanga y Benavides.
Right. So he said, listen, after we win this title, okay, he would definitely he would want to fight Berlanga or Benavidez. Definitely, definitely.
And the weight division is very open right now. We're also seeing the market in like all over the place right now in terms of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates really coming in with the big boy money. Now, I want to ask you, right? Of course, the rematch fights can happen. And of course, as a promoter and a manager like yourself, you would want those fights to happen as well. But as in your point of view, what fight makes the most sense for him this year?
I think the fight that makes the most sense is Berlanga, and I'll tell you why. Okay, we won that fight, hands down. We won that fight to the point that Berlanga bit him. Okay, that you know what? Since Alexis not only is a sportsman but a gentleman, he didn't make a big show of it. He didn't make anything, but they suspended Berlanga for 6 months. You know what? He's a coward. Berlanga's a coward. Okay, Berlanga, knows he doesn't want what Alexis brings. He doesn't want it. Alexis is, in the style of the Mexican fighters, okay, but with real power. Okay, real power. It's an honor to see him spar. Okay, we fight 220-pound Russians, okay, in sparring, and they don't want it. They just don't want it. They just don't, the amount of power he has, so if Berlanga wants to redeem himself and save his name, because even the fight he has with McRae, that's a crap fight. That's a crap fight. That's something just to raise his literally his exposure, but it's a crap fight. You know that. McRae can't fight his way out of a wet paper bag. This is the fight that if Berlanga wants to redeem himself, okay, because it was stolen from Alexis. It was absolutely stolen.
And that's one thing I see a lot in boxing nowadays is a lot of international fighters, they tend to be robbed as they seem to be an away fighter. And this happens a lot. Now,
Yes,
obviously, I want to ask you still based on the Edgar Berlanga thing. Obviously, after the fight, his next fight was the Quigley fight. So a lot of people have been questioning, saying Eddie Hearn wants him to fight Canelo, but the opposition that he often fights are not really on the level that he should be. Now, obviously, let's just talk about this fight. I want to, get back on this fight. 10 fight card. We got 10 fights in Miami on March the 1st. What fight, what top three fight, and I'm putting you on the spot, but what top three fights as a promoter excites you the most?
Okay, so number one, obviously Alexis's fight. He's fighting Oscar Rijoas, who's a very very tough Mexican fighter. It's a battle of very similar styles. Okay, these two, they don't have any reverse. Okay, they're gonna go at each other. So we also have Ademaye Wakanda, okay, who's fighting for the IBO junior title. Okay, he's fighting another Mexican, very very skilled fighter, and we have Lorenzo Medina, who's the giant killer. Lorenzo Medina is a very very cool fighter. He's a smaller heavyweight, but he's packed some serious skills. So I love the whole card we have. It's a very Miami card. But I think it's something that you guys are going to be able to transmit it through BeinSports. Okay, you'll be able to see it, and it's a great card in general.
And of course, I'm not gonna, take too much away from this interview, but I do want to sort of also get on in the super middleweight division. There's of course Jaime Munguia, who's recently scored a spectacular win over John Ryder, sending him to retirement. Who Canelo couldn't stop. And then you have David Morrell, the current WBA super world champion. Even though he's got the regular title, he's still a world titleist. You have in June, the Beterbiev versus Bivol, and there's so many fights as well. Other than, of course, Berlanga and fights like that, does the fights with maybe Jaime Munguia spark interest? Because I would love to see that.
100%, 100%. The thing is, and let's call a spade, okay? No one's knocking on our door to fight this gentleman. They are absolutely not. I believe all those guys, I'm in intimate conversations with all of them, with their managers and everything. No one is knocking on the door to fight this guy. Okay, they know that it could be lights out in 2 seconds. I flat out think they're flat out scared, including Canelo Alvarez. Okay, literally in conversations, they just don't justify wanting to fight this gentleman. Okay, number one, he's one of the hardest workers. Okay, and has a devastating knockout power, like devastating, like heavyweight knockout power. So Munguia would be ideal, but he doesn't want this. He doesn't want this. There's always justification. It's too early in his career. It's too everything. They're just running scared.
And in terms of the matchmaking side as well, how hard is it to really match, a big power puncher like him?
It's extremely hard. Okay, what's been happening is extremely hard. So what we've been experiencing is, we get calls when it's a last minute fill in. Okay, that's the calls we get when they have no, when they have no alternatives, when they have no solutions. But you know what? No one, none of the fighters out there, all those fighters, okay, that you mentioned, want to fight this guy. They just don't. He has too much experience. He works way too hard. Okay, he is literally about his craft. Okay, literally about his craft, and they're scared. They're scared. They don't want to. They don't see. There's no benefit to them. Okay, taking on a fight with Alexis Angulo.
And question's going to go back to Alexis. What was it like to grow up in the streets of Colombia?
¿Cómo fue creciendo en la calle de Colombia?
Bueno, no me crié en la calle como tal, me crié en el campo trabajando duro, cargando mulas, caballos y cargando también mucho peso pesado en los hombros, en el cuerpo, en la cabeza, todo.
Yeah, so he didn't necessarily grow up in the streets. He was more of a farm town. Okay, so his family was he worked hard labor from the beginning, and he attributes a lot of his strength to that, hard labor.
And it's a bit off topic, but I did want to say this for a while, and now that I'm absolutely privileged to speak to Alexis right now. You actually remind me of a heavyweight called Ike Ibuchi. I don't know if you know who that is, but he fought David Tua back in the day, and his boxing stopped at 20-0 with 15 KOs. You should search him up. Your fighting style really does remind me of him, knocking everyone out, including Chris Bird back in the day.
Que tú le haces la comparación a Ike Ibuchi, que es un boxeador que se fajó con Tua, ¿ok? Que
¿Quién es Tua?
son heavyweights que ganó 20 con 15 knockouts, que tú eres un estilo así bien similar con él. Sí.
Bueno, muchas gracias.
Thank you. He says thank you very much.
De nada, de nada. You know, I do know a bit of Spanish myself. I learned it back in school.
There you go.
Now, I'm going to keep this interview on the shorter side now, and then I'm going to
Yes,
try
sir.
and catch up with you guys after the fight. But in
Okay.
terms of just say your amateur career as well and your pro career. Now, I want to ask you, what was it like? You know, I'm going to scrap that question actually. In terms of your sparring, a lot of fighters, you know, as they tend to get older, they tend to decrease the level of sparring to sort of keep the longevity in the sport. Is that the same with Alexis Angulo right now?
Cuando los boxeadores tienen una tendencia cuando se ponen mayores, el nivel de sparring, tú has ajustado eso, como no hacen los mismos sparrings como antes.
Bueno, siempre hemos hecho sparring acorde a lo que mi entrenador manda,
Yeah.
¿no? Entonces, por eso es lo que está haciendo.
Yeah. So,
un gran entrenador y hacemos los tratados que él dice, como él dice, como él dice.
right. So you know, fortunately, we have the great Pedro Diaz, you know, as our trainer, you know, and Pedro, you know, he has a doctorate in sports medicine. Okay, he's next level, you know, and what we've been doing with Alexis is what we've been doing with Alexis is that the sparring, the intensity and the duration have decreased, you know, in accordance to his training camp, you know, but he's possibly in the best shape of his life right now.
And in terms of your fight back in 2020 on August the 15th, when you fought David Benavidez, he actually came in 2.5 pounds above the weight limit in the WBC title fight. Now, obviously, you know, we've seen this with Gervonta Davis, you know, who's had struggles of making weight. We've seen that with so many fighters, including David Benavidez. Obviously, what was it like for Alexis in terms of making weight in terms of the fight? You know, was there ever an issue?
Tú tienes en la última pelea con Benavidez, tú tenías problemas haciendo el peso.
Más que el peso, pues son cosas de las cuales nunca se habló, ¿no? Ni eso. Tampoco me gustaría hablar ahora, pero lo único que les puedo decir es que no estaba al 100% en cuanto a mi cuerpo.
Right. So yeah, making weight was a little difficult. You know, it wasn't ideal. You know, it wasn't ideal. He didn't appreciate that. You know, Benavidez came in overweight. You know, considering how hard he struggled to make weight.
And obviously, I know you know, we are just days away. Now, I do want to sort of, before we do let you go, Alexis and Rolando, because I know you know, you guys have had a very busy week. What are we expecting on March the 1st to Rolando and Alexis?
¿Qué estamos esperando marzo 1?
No, estamos esperando una victoria contundente,
Right.
sin lugar a duda.
Right.
Y pues esperamos no trasnocharnos mucho.
Right. Yeah. So it's going to be an early night. It's going to be an early night. You know, we expect fireworks real quick. You know, it's going to be a long night for me, a long night for him. You know, so we want to get out of there early. That's what we expect.
And it's going to be absolute fireworks. All the stuff will be up on Boxing Domination. Guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I know, you know, you took some time away. You took about 24 minutes of your time.
Thank you very much,
I
man.
appreciate it. Thank you.
It's our honor. It's our honor. Dile, es un honor.
Es un honor.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you so much. And make sure you guys watch the fight live. Was it on BeinSports, right?
BeinSports, correct.
Yes, BeinSports on March the 1st
1st
in Tallahassee.
Absolutely, my brother. Thank you.